the My Cancer, My Choices podcast. I'm Mandy Barter. I'm the co-founder of My Cancer, My Choices. And here today we have the chair of our charity, Colin Maclean, and oncology lead nurse, Mark Fuchs. And we're here to talk about cancer, and more specifically, Colin, your cancer, because you've had two types of cancer. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, first of all?
Okay, I'm Colin Maclean. I graduated as a vet, so I practiced for a few years. I then went into industry, ended up my business career as the Director General of the Meat and Livestock Commission, a big quango. And then on my retirement, I moved into the health service and became the chairman of the Royal Berkshire Hospital, eventually Foundation Trust. Did 12 years there and loved every minute of it. And during that period, I regrettably suffered from my first cancer, which was prostate cancer. And on my retirement from the Royal Berkshire in 2012, I actually was diagnosed with bowel cancer. So I've had two episodes. And it's on that basis, I think, you might have some questions for me.
Well, it'd be nice to hear your experiences of those things, because I know that you feel there's quite a lot of differences between your experience of those two cancers. It'd be really good to hear about that, particularly from a point of view of a man with cancer and seeing what that felt like. So if you want, I'm just wondering, should we do them in sort of time order then? And so if you want to talk about your experience talk about your prostate cancer and how you found it, and just talk about that.
Okay, well, that was 2008, and that was picked up from a regular monitoring of PSA levels, and I'd been doing that for 5 or 8 years, and suddenly they lifted, and therefore I was sent in for a biopsy, which is via your rectum, which was a bit painful, but the most important thing, it was very accurate in its diagnosis, and therefore I needed treatment. At that time, most of the prostate cancers had been dealt with surgically. Yes. But during the previous 4 or 5 years, radiotherapy had been climbing up in effectiveness and results. Yeah. And at that stage, the surgeons and indeed the oncologist felt that there was little difference between the two methods of treating it. Yeah. But the most important part of my decision was that we knew what the side effects were of surgery, particularly on men's sexual functions and urinary tract infections, and radiotherapy, it was hoped, would give better results, and therefore I chose radiotherapy.
Yeah. Can I take you back a little bit? And so when you got this diagnosis for your PSA testing, did you have any symptoms? Did you know that you were even unwell, or did you have any trouble, urinary problems or anything like that?
No major problems.
So you're completely symptom-free?
Symptom-free, yes. Difficult to judge as an individual. I might have been going to the loo a bit more often than other people, but I'm not sure of that.
Yeah, okay. That's interesting, isn't it? So you came out of the blue, really?
Yes, it did.
Yeah. So do you want to tell me a little bit about, or tell us a little bit about the treatment and what that meant for you, the treatment itself for the prostate cancer, what you had to put up with, and how that went, and how were you supported?
Okay, well, I was supported very, very well by both the surgeon who had referred me to the oncologist and the oncologist himself. Supported very well by both. The treatment was 5 weeks, or 5 working day weeks, so 25 days. Of radiotherapy using IMRT, which is immune modulated radiotherapy, which is external radiotherapy. They put a little tattoo on your tummy so they know where to sit you down and to point the beam. The beam goes round and round you. Yeah. And frankly, you don't really know that anything's happening. In my case, the people tell me there is pain. There was no pain. There was no after effects. I would go back to my office in the hospital. Carry on working. And it was fine. So I have no concerns about the treatment. The treatment appeared to be effective. Yeah. But quite soon after the treatment stopped, I began to see the effect of the side effects. Yeah. And I had hoped that they would be improved on those that occurred with surgery.
But you didn't find that?
But I didn't find that. I found that sexual dysfunction was quite quickly made me aware of that. And that was a serious problem. during this whole process, of course, because I was chairman of the hospital, I was keeping everything quiet. The only people in that hospital who knew I'd got a cancer were the oncology department.
Yeah.
And they kept their confidence, obviously, which was good. And the reason for that is, as a leader of a big organisation, showing a weakness, and I know this is a male sort of trait.
Yeah, we have spoken about this before.
Like that, you don't want to show it. So I certainly didn't, and I was well, and therefore perfectly capable of going on, so I got on with it. When the side effects started to come in, I had few urinary side effects.
Yeah.
A little bit of irritation and soreness after the end of the radiotherapy, and certainly a painful ejaculation that was happening. But very soon after that, without support, there was no ejaculation because there was no erection.
Okay. So can I just discuss that with you a little bit then? So did that come as a complete shock to you, or was it something you might were expecting, but something you hoped to avoid? Had you spoken about this with sort of your partner or anything like that? Or
I'd spoken about it with the surgeons, and of course the oncologists. In other words, that they naturally give you a warning of all the possible side effects. Yes. Yeah. And to be fair to everybody, because we were in that change period between surgery being the main method of treating it and radiotherapy becoming the more regular method of treating it, they didn't have all the information about whether those side effects that occurred with surgery would also occur with radiotherapy. Okay. Regrettably, in my case, they did, and I think I'm right in saying that's generally the case now, that radiotherapy doesn't offer you an advantage in the side effects to surgery. Hence, people are doing research these on ultrasound treatments and what have you, because they believe there may be less side effects, but I understand that they are slightly less effective. So, you play one side up against the other. I
think that's true, and I think sort of maybe we'll touch on that later. But I think sort of the treatment for prostate cancer is like in some ways it's done very glibly, isn't it? It says like it's a treatable cancer. People can be treated. Lots of men get better and have long survival after. But what it means for them is quite a lot. It's a massive life change, isn't it? Because both sort of sexual dysfunction and having hormone therapy as well means massive changes for men.
Yes, it does. I mean, the sexual dysfunction's there right at the beginning before you get anywhere near the hormone therapy.
Yeah.
I'm 12 years since the diagnosis of the cancer, so I'm a survivor. Yeah. But I can assure you that my sexual capabilities have been close to nil for 12 years. Yeah. Now, the other side of that particular coin is I'm well. Yeah. I have not got rid of the cancer. The cancer is still there, contained within the capsule of the prostate. Yeah. That's been measured by a more recent testing method of choline led. It's not an ultrasound. It's
scanning methodology.
And they give you a little chemical basically, and they can find out it lights up when it's still active. And fundamentally, therefore, they know the cancer's still there, but it's contained within the capsule. Therefore, they then put you on hormone therapy, which is, of course, to actually suppress the male hormone, which is the driver of the cancer. And what that does is, when you're on the hormone, in my case anyway, it takes your drive away.
No libido, loss of libido.
It's loss of libido. Well, it's loss of drive as well as libido.
So like your own personal drive.
Yes, yes, and that's and therefore in my particular case, it's not all the time. It's 1 month in 4. Yeah. I spend on it, and I notice within 3 days of going on it that loss of drive.
Yeah.
Now the issue with all this, that it's all managed. I'm having a great life. Don't misunderstand me. Yeah. But the sexual side is gone, and I'm a bit worried about staying on hormone treatment all my life, which I think I will have to because of this loss of drive.
Yeah. And it's a very personal thing to a man. That sort of drive, isn't it? That drive to do things. Not only libido, which is important to me as well, but I think that not only libido, but loss of drive, loss of that thing that's intrinsically male, isn't it? That thing about drive that we all value. That thing about adrenaline base, it's fair to say, you always come across as like a man's man. You feel, you obviously, sort of masculine and driven person, successful businessman. So where do you go for support, or where did you go for support when these things happened?
Well,
were you able to?
That was the challenge. No, there wasn't enough support. Don't misunderstand me. The clinical treatment, the diagnosis, the treatment itself, and dealing with the disease itself was superb.
Yeah.
The support, I was warned of the side effects, as I've told you already, but once those side effects were in, I ended up going to my GP for help in the first place, and as most many of those circumstances get, they offer you Viagra, and then because that's short and quick, there's another drug called Cialis, which of course you go on to, and you can do that, and I did. But as I've said to you, there are other little bits of the side effects. So, for example, ejaculation was painful. So you're not encouraged exactly to do all those things. Now, I can't speak for how I would be now. I have no idea. I've learned to do without, and I'm very happy in what I'm doing. But there's no doubt that the support at that stage that was available, that I saw in my other cancer, was not really there in quantity. My GP was helpful, but he didn't engage me in the sort of well-being side, the self-esteem side, and what have you. And therefore you're alone. That's the real challenge, and that's a worry that I guess all men have, because of the machoism, if you call it that. The carer, the leader, the one who's looking after everybody in the family and what have you. We take on those responsibilities. Probably we don't even know we're doing it, but we do.
Yeah, sure.
And this actually therefore leaves you handling this sort of issue alone. And when we come to talk about it, that's probably, didn't happen to be, one of the values of an organisation like My Cancer, My Choices. Because it has therapists who are trained in the cancer pathway, and they're listeners. As well as delivering whatever treatment they're doing, they're actually able to listen, sympathise with it, they have the time to do it. And that's incredibly valuable to somebody to help them to find their own standing, their own self-esteem again, and what have you. It's very important.
Do you mind if I take you back to talking about the differences between the way your colorectal cancer was managed and your prostate cancer, and say why? Because you were saying that it felt as if care was more wrapped around you in the colorectal sense. Do you want to explain that a little bit more and talk about that?
It was massively important, but it was very different. Fundamentally, what happened with my bowel cancer, I was in London at a meeting, I went to the loo and the pan was full of blood. That was the starting point of it. I immediately came back, so my GP got a very quick referral and ended up with an endoscopy and a biopsy. The endoscopy found the tumour in my bowel, close to my rectum, and the endoscopy saw the cancerous cells, and therefore there was very little decision that needed surgically removing. That's a major operation into your abdomen, big 1.5 or 2 feet long section of your intestine removed. Because the two ends of the intestine are way apart, there has to be a stoma, because when they pull the two ends together they can't be sure that stitching will hold. So you have to have a stoma and a bag, basically. Now, all of that was handled in a team-like way. Just as in the prostate cancer, the surgeon was superb, big explanation, so I understood what was going on. But all the time, either in the room or immediately afterwards, there was always a specialist nurse of one sort or another who was providing the continuity all the time, not only during the diagnosis, but during the surgical procedures, in intensive care afterwards. The same clinical nurse specialist, afterwards the same stoma nurse who was skilled in that sort of area. So the support was there all the time. Now the second point is, of course, I was in a ward when I was having the surgery and in intensive care with a lady in the bed either side of me and what have you. We were all in exactly the same position, and therefore there was no issue of my machoism or whatever else.
So you felt much less isolated?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And the support, even though they weren't all ladies, but basically most of the clinical nurse specialists were women. But the support was superb. Anything that I wanted to know about, they would explain. So I had all the information that I needed to try and manage my own illness. In the case of the bowel cancer, the emotional side didn't play another role other than the life or death one. You know, you're in intensive care, you're going to survive. So the emotional side was never a threat. And therefore, in my view, that men and women with that sort of illness treated in the same way, and the male machoism doesn't come into it. You've got the same problems. It's physical. The problem in each case.
So, to review then, I suppose the only point is that I suppose I'd like to ask you what we can learn from how we should look after people with prostate cancer and related sexual problems with prostate cancer. How we can do how can we do better by men? What things can we do? And you've mentioned about a more holistic approach from My Cancer, My Choices. But is there anything else that we should do or can do to help men deal with this?
Well, I think there are organisations building up now. I know Rotary is taking an interest in prostate cancer and persuading men to have more tests, etc., etc. There's no doubt that... sorry, I can only speak for myself.
No, we'll do it. I hope you will.
Talking to another man with what I call an emotional problem, with a sexual problem is an emotional problem, that would be easier, but I don't think that's a solution because I probably wouldn't have done it to anybody. It's my problem, as it were, and it's an emotional issue which I've got to learn to handle myself. But the building up of these support groups, which is happening on large scale now, where men, if they are willing, can go and join in a group discussion or listen to somebody else talking about themselves, that helps them without them showing something that makes their macho not look as strong as they'd like it to be and what have you. So being given information, because what men like and what I like is information. I know it's my problem, I've got to manage it, I need the best possible information I can get, and that's not only on the illness, it's on all the downstream results of it, the side effects and everything else. So I can then, if you like, lead my own life at my pace and time and retain my self-esteem.
Yeah, I mean, do you think if you look back on it now, you would do things differently? Because you speak very eloquently and openly about this now. Would it have been helpful to have these sorts of discussions back then when you were in the middle of all of that with your prostate cancer, do you think? And how could we have started that process off?
I have to be honest and say, no, I don't think I could have been as open as I am being with you now. I was leading, an organisation employing 5,000 people. We were going to a transformation in the hospital at that time from an NHS Trust to a Foundation Trust. The departments were working superbly well, I have to say, with their leadership and I had a clinician as my chief executive who was also very, very supportive of everything we were doing. I don't think I would have been any more open. It
cuts such to the heart of who you are, doesn't it? It cuts such to the heart of who you are, and not only your physical and emotional life, but also your employment life. It's so deeply affected by this sort of thing.
I think as and I suggest maybe some other men, want information. They want to know what it's all about. And I'm, in a way, clinically qualified myself, so I have some understanding of what it... So
you've got an analytical brain.
Yes, and I want the information, and then I can then manage my illness myself. And therefore, the provision of that information is probably the most important thing. Because sexual dysfunction, and to some extent urinary dysfunctions, were not what I call the main line of the disease of prostate cancer. They are the side effects. Then the amount of effort going in to produce information about them and what you might do was not a lot. Now, there may be more now, so let me be careful, but
I think
fundamentally that's something that's quite important.
I think you're right, because I spend a lot of time talking in meetings about when people say, hormonal treatments for prostate cancer are very effective, and they are effective, but it doesn't take into account the emotional and physical impact that these treatments have on men, which is often almost taken for granted. And I think that's very, very sad, and I think we need to do better at doing that and how we can support people. And I think talking to you about your experience is really valuable. If we can provide some sort of wraparound care like your feeling was in colorectal cancer, where it didn't feel as if you were alone, didn't feel that you felt as if you were looked after and you could talk openly about your illness. If you had that same feeling about your prostate cancer, then it might have been easier for you and less traumatic.
It might have been, but don't forget that my answer to your last question was that with prostate cancer, it's different. Yeah. It's different because it touches a large scale on the emotional side for a man.
Yes.
And in many cases, and I don't believe I'm alone, the men want the facts, they'll make the decisions, they'll try and drive it, but basically when it comes to the emotional side, yes, maybe with their wife, but I'm not sure I share all the detail with my wife, to be absolutely honest. But so fundamentally, it's better if there are systems or groups who actually are putting out information that told me about those side effects and how I might help myself with them.
Yes.
I think I would have been better off. And that doesn't ask me to be very open with everybody in a group round me. My prostate cancer was very different from my
bowel cancer.
It's so interesting to hear that. I mean, my own feeling is I think you're putting a good spin on it, but I still feel that from a nursing point of view that we could have done better by approaching that in a slightly different way, or at least giving you the opportunity to talk about these issues, the sexual emotional issues, in more of an open way. And I feel sorry that you felt so alone looking back on it. So yes, but I think we could have done better somehow. I'm not sure that I have the answer. Maybe I don't.
Mark, would it? We're talking about 12 years ago. Is it different now? Is there any?
I think there are things that have changed. I think that there's a view that we do have more expertise in sexual dysfunction linked to prostate cancer, and we actually have a way of referring that. We also have a psychosexual counsellor we can access that we never had when you. And I think that probably would have been useful. At least my own feeling is that even just talking about these issues without having come up with a sticking plaster fix it type thing. Men always love a sticking plaster fix it thing, don't we? We always love that. But even if we can't do that, at least you can talk about it.
Yes.
So I think we would have done. I think we would have done slightly better. But there is still a presumption that prostate cancer is somehow, your treatment is trouble free because people live for a long time with it. But it's a hell of an impact on your life when one moment you're sexually active and feeling very virile, and several months later, some of that's been taken from you. I think that's hard. It's hard.
No, that's right. I mean, as you've been talking, I'm just thinking. I mean, the hospital has a superb sexual health department. Yeah. Now, I don't know how much it deals with issues like this. I know it deals with many of the youngsters' issues and what have you. But that I know there are people with quite a lot of expertise in the health side from a sexual disease point of view. Not necessarily just a physiological point of view, but I'm sure some of them must have knowledge in that sort of area. And the same with urology. Urology, because some of the side effects are urological. And I don't know, there might be ways of building something like the team that I saw with my bowel cancer.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But I guess it's easier. The bowel cancer really is in one department. You're not asking to jump across departments, so it will be slightly more challenging.
I think that's a challenge for us, actually. I think we need to try and do that and look at men more holistically, which is what you're pleased about, really, isn't it? It's about why you're saying that we need to do better in terms of holistics. It's about giving men the opportunity to talk about these things and have support that's very real. And in a way, we have to appeal to men in a way that they'll take on that doesn't alienate people and make them feel as if they're weak and weird.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I'm sure that's very right.
Yeah. That's good. Really good to talk to you about this, and thank you for sharing things so openly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mandy, do you have anything to ask?
No, I just wondered, do you think, would men benefit from support groups talking about this? Do you think that would that help, or do you think that is not something that men would talk about, sort of sexual dysfunction?
I doubt that. I'm talking about me, so I have to be careful. I can't talk for everybody. I think if I have to start with the information, there has to be, or I would like there to be, information sources all around that I can tap into So if you take the prostate cancer, I've already said the cancer diagnosis treatment was superb. Nothing to do there. The side effects were mentioned beforehand, but when they actually came and hit me, I felt very alone. My GP did a bit, but I don't think there was a deep understanding there. That may be, I don't think it'd be unfair to him, but basically. But there must be ways, if one recognises that there are, well, more than two, but two major side effects, the sexual side effects and the urinary side effects, that there is an information source. Go back to my first point about men wanting information. An information source says if this side effect happens, here's either where to go or to read about it, or an information source. If you want to base everything on information, we will provide you access to that information source. And then you can understand how to do better or how to mitigate the sexual dysfunction or what have you. Or face up to it.
Just recognition of it, isn't it?
Yes.
So recognition of it, this is a problem that we understand, that we you know, there's a recognition that it's not an easy thing. And I think that's probably why that makes me feel a little bit sad that you were just left to get on with it. It's like, you go, crack on with that, you know, sorry about that. So that makes you feel a little bit.
But do remember the service has got limitations. The health service as a whole has got limitations. There clearly are some aspects of the work that My Cancer, My Choices is delivering. That are helping to support and, as I say, closing gaps, but actually are adding value to the support mechanisms that hospital is delivering so superbly. So there is a place. I don't know how to do it for men. We have to get them involved and engaged, and it might be more men in My Cancer, My Choices to be able to chat to people. But even the men who already work in My Cancer, My Choices, when I talk to them about this issue, they talk about male machoism as probably the leading prevention of men coming for attention. So it's the same, they're identifying the same problem. So I go back to my original concept, is if men need information and won't openly deal with the emotional side, I think we have to find ways of providing them with the information.
What about because I see a lot of leaflets from Prostate Cancer UK, which is a big charity. They must obviously deal with this.
They do, and they provide information probably more so than when you were being treated, and people can seek sources of information, but it's the way in which I think you have to appeal in more than one way, don't you? And I think because of the way you think, and you're basically a scientist, you like to have information, stack your information up, and make some choices against that. But I think that if you work in a slightly different way, you think I'm just feeling so isolated, I don't know how to talk to somebody about this. We have to be able to offer things in a slightly different way. So I think it would be good to be able to have a range of resources available to men where they can talk about things, and I'm not sure we have all those in place.
I think that's very right, and I think that inside that, all men are different like everybody else. There's no doubt that information is of value to people in my peer group, if you like, my kids, ex-university or what have you. There are a significant proportion of our society who don't have that background training. Maybe aren't doing quite as well as I was doing, and what have you.
Different feelings
in
about
those, in those circumstances, it's probably not my experience, but I believe probably a tougher problem with trying to get to those groups of people to actually help them. And you're right; it might be not just the provision of information that would cause them to learn quicker and do better. Maybe they do need support. I don't know how to do that.
I think that what we've talked about today is about having a more holistic approach, and My Cancer, My Choices are part of that. And I think it behoves us as a health service, as things go on, we'll have more people who are living with the side effects of treatment, more people who live in the houses as you do with these issues that have been caused by treatment, and we have to find a better way of approaching that, would be my view. And I think, head in the right direction, but there's a lot more work to do yet.
Good.
Thank you both very much. Thank you, Colin, for being.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you for being so open.
Yes, and thank you for being our chair.
Thank you.
Thank you both.